Here we are. Now I'm live. Fantastic. This is the good stuff. Now I need another monitor. And my life will be complete. But for now, hey, I'm going to read the chat on my phone. It's going to be all good. We've got this. I'll set it up right here. I'll be able to see all your messages pop up and whatnot. But hey, do you guys get to see my screen now? We're going to be going into water curing. We're going to find out what it does to your plants, what exactly we're going to be going for. Does it cure faster? Do we get quality cannabis out of it? What are some reviews? Hopefully we can answer a couple of these questions, but I want to make this stream a little bit shorter than normal. I'm getting the learning curve with getting the new stream set up figured out and all the new software and whatever, but I'm going to stop rambling. We're going to get into water curing. Alright, water curing cannabis, how to do it and why, or how and why to do it rather. I'm a little bit dyslexic this time of being awake, but let's just get into this article, I suppose, and see if we can answer some of our questions going in. After harvest, cannabis needs to be dried and cured. It is ready before it is ready to consume. Drying typically occurs first, followed by bucking to remove. Wow, followed by bucking? What the fuck is to remove flower from the stem? I guess trimming, and trimming to remove the remaining leaves. The last step of post-harvest process is curing. Curing cannabis is a technique that aims to remove and degrade harsh and unwanted substances from the harvested buds, which it's mostly for the moisture, so it's actually smokable, and so that it can still produce things because it's still going through a lot of its natural process after the curing. Not so much to remove substances from it. It's just that moisture that's evaporating out. But allowing the flavors to develop and the smoke or vapor to become smoother. It is even believed that curing can increase potency, which I fully believe. The most popular form of curing is a simple technique that consists of placing harvested buds in mason jars or a selected container and airing them out regularly, aka burping, which I have a lot of videos on if you guys want to check those out, and simply waiting. The process usually takes about 14 days but can extend by choice. For some growers, they will cure for many months to allow the flavor profiles to mature and change over time. And a lot of these cures we're going to be looking about 6 months being the maximum. Obviously, you can go a little bit longer if your buds are just absolutely huge, or you can go a lot shorter, again, depending on the bud size and the actual real estate it's taking up with that actual plant itself. And I know a couple guys wanted me to play, Weed Shop 3. I am looking forward to playing that. However, I did not want to do it in this state, and I also don't want to stay up very much longer. But I will be playing that game very soon. I think coming up this weekend, I think would be a really fun time to play it. And I'm looking at the stream out of the corner of my eye. It's looking fantastic, and I'm super excited to see what we can do with it. But another lesser-known technique is curing cannabis in water, also known as water curing. As the name suggests, water curing cannabis requires the use of water instead of air. Many unwanted substances and compounds found in cannabis are water soluble, which means you can cure. Wow. I'm having a hard time seeing, man. You know when you stay up for a long time or you're like super tired and your eyes get like super blurry and it's like there's extra water in there or something? Curing marijuana in water is also faster. Okay, I think I skipped ahead a little bit. Many unwanted substances and compounds found in cannabis are water soluble, which means you can cure your weed by immersing your or immersing your buds in water. Fill the jars and changing the water daily. Curing marijuana in water is also faster than air curing water. Air curing, water curing cannabis can take 5 to 10 days depending on the quality of the buds. On the other hand, air curing takes between 2 weeks and a couple of months for the best results. If the bud is wet for that long, how will it affect the bud? So basically, the bud being wet isn't exactly an issue here, because after the bud gets unwet from you taking it out of the jar, determining that water cure is actually finished, you will then put it into another drying process, crazily enough, just to dry that bud out and make it smokable. And you could even define it as a mini curing process, as you will be airing that bud out again to ensure that mold does not accumulate. But basically, the bud being wet isn't going to affect it. And one thing I do that also gets bud wet is bud washing, which I have videos on. I recommend you check them out if that's something you're interested in. Just getting a cleaner product from your bud, getting it a little wet on the first couple of days that it's actually cut, and then drying it out. And I've actually noticed that it makes the drying process a little bit quicker, actually by a couple of days. So that's something you could look at if you're having a problem with your plants being too dry, ironically or counterintuitively, however you want to look at it. So, thanks for the question, Bluntum76. I greatly appreciate it. I think that was a quality thing to go over, since we're talking about this. So I'm putting into water after chopped. Yes. So basically the way this entire process is you'll take the plant, you'll harvest it, you will put it up and dry it up and go through the entire drying process. Then at that point, you're going to do a dry trim. You're going to trim all the leaves off, get the buds off the stems, get them into their bud profiles that you're going for, cutting off all of the sugar leaves, going through an entire grooming process on your bud. And when it is at its finished product, the way that they're describing this in this article and the way I understand it, then you will put it into the jars, submerge them in water, and all of the negative things that are actually water soluble that you don't want in your medication will then be solidified by the water or absorbed by the water. You know what I'm talking about. They'll be mixed into the water and absorbed into the water rather than staying in your bud, and then that will give you a healthier product. However, there are a couple problems with that. One is the cure is extremely quick, which I've noticed isn't ideal for bud quality, but also a lot of the color goes, so bag appeal is missing, and then I hear a lot of terpenes actually get extracted during that process and you lose a lot of your terps. It's just kind of something you would want to do ideally if it was like your first harvest or you harvested an absolute ton and you ran out of weed before, but you needed a quick stash to build. That's the only application I could see this in. And then even then, I would only want to do about like an eighth of my yield just because it's going to ruin it, but it's still going to get you high. In my opinion, it's going to ruin it. I'm not judging anyone who prefers a water cure or anything like that. There are a million ways to grow this plant, and there are 1,000 ways to skin a cat, as the saying goes. So I try to be objective as possible and not judge anyone for the way they grow as long as they're not harming anybody. But I do try to also give a little bit of nudges in a better direction, especially if I can talk to them and find out what they're wanting out of their plant. I try to give as much advice as possible to get someone where they want to go, rather than telling them how I would do something in a certain situation. And those are two very different things. But that's a completely different tangent. It has nothing to do with water curing. Well, it has loosely to do with water curing. Water curing weed guide. How does it work? Curing cannabis in water allows undesirable compounds such as chlorophyll and carbohydrates, proteins, salts, and to be slowly removed since THC, CBD, and other cannabinoids are fat soluble and hydrophobic. Water curing should have very limited to any impact on them in the final product. Unlike cannabinoids, and the most common terpenes, some terpene-like compounds, also called terpenoids and flavonoids, are in fact water soluble. So you'll lose out on the terpenoids and the flavonoids. Oh no, I don't think that's for me. Good read though. I would love to see and taste the difference. That's actually something I want to do. I want to do that for content, and I want to actually have a blind test where I invite a bunch of my friends over. We do some filming in the what I like to call the content warehouse, but it's actually my pole barn, and have them try the difference between a properly I'm going to put the air quotes over that, but in my opinion, properly cured bud versus a water cured bud, and see if they can taste the difference, identify if the strain is different. If I switch them around, like I give them a cherry cookies that's properly cured versus a white widow that is water cured, see if they can identify the difference. Do the same vice versa, cherry cookies, and then the cherry cookies water cured, see if they can tell the difference, and just mix and match it, and just see if they can tell the difference between the different things that I do in a grow and what they like more. I think that's going to make very great content if they're willing to be actors in my little show that I'm trying to put on. Flavonoids, in fact, water soluble. The process of water curing helps remove these and allow for a smoother smoking experience. However, as a result, water curing cannabis will also remove some of the taste and smell, which is preserved when air curing. So if that's something that's super important to you, I know it's super important to me that my weed, that my weed tastes and smells good. Very important. It can make or break a cannabis that I want to grow. If it is putting out big buds, if it's really impressive in stature, if it's really easy to grow, but it tastes and smells like garbage, don't want it. Sorry, not sorry. What are the pros and cons of curing cannabis in water? Both air and water curing cannabis will significantly improve the quality of your final product. However, one is not necessarily better than the other. I beg to differ. Instead, the best curing technique is the one that meets your needs and elevates your experience. That cannot be argued with, that specific point. So the pros. Water curing cannabis is simple and requires minimal equipment. That's fair. The process is quick, as it usually takes between 5 to 10 days. I mean, to be fair, air curing can take only 14 to 20 days. Curing weed in water results in a smoother smoking experience. Again, I would have to test that for myself because I doubt it. The smell and taste are less noticeable, making it a great ingredient for edibles and topicals. And I would argue that the flavors and the aromas, if you have good quality herb that you're dealing with, edibles are going to actually be enhanced if you're applying the right one to the right thing. Now, topicals, I can't really talk on. I don't have a lot of experience with topicals. But edibles, for sure, you can make them enhanced by terpenes and flavonoids and terpenoids. The bag appeal decreases significantly as water-cured buds lose... Okay, so we're on the con section now. Sorry, I didn't say that. But you can see it on the screen. You're good. The bag appeal decreases significantly as water-cured buds lose some of their vibrant colors and may look slightly washed out. Some of the terpenes or other flavors and smells will be lost in the process. Through water curing, though water curing is faster than air curing, a decrease in taste and smell might not be worth it for some. A significant risk of mold during the drying step. So, yeah, that high humidity is definitely going to play a role in how you take care of that bud when it goes into its second drying stage. Because there is a second one. There's a drying, and then there's the chopping, and then there's the curing, and then there's the drying again. So it seems like a lot more work just to get to the same place, I guess. Because, okay, let's map this out. The water curing, you'll get done in the water after 5 to 10 days, right? I'm with you. How long is that bud going to take to dry again? Is it only going to take 3 days? Because then it's a day faster if you're looking at the high end on the water. Is it going to take 5 days? Because then you're looking at being a little bit slower than air curing. And granted, it doesn't always take 14 days. Sometimes it does take 17 or 20. Sometimes it takes 2 months. But if you're going to have the bud on the shelf for 2 months, it seems like a lot less work to air cure in my opinion, because having to change the water out every single day, possibly twice a day, versus burping your jars once a day at the start, every 12 hours or so, give or take, and then slowly going down a little bit at a time until you don't really have to at all. But there's still only the couple of steps and you don't have a second drying stage. Air curing's taking the win for me. A guide to water curing cannabis. The equipment for water curing cannabis is pretty basic. All you need is freshly harvested, trimmed cannabis buds, distilled water, containers with lids, ideally mason jars, and tinfoil, optional. Let's see if we can find out what the tinfoil is about. I do want to look up one more thing real quick. I want to know how long this has been going on. You know what? I'm going to ask when it started. When... Because I've only heard of it recently. The goal of men bud washing, better to washing the fruits and vegetables before eating them. Bud washing removes. That's not what we're talking about. Here's an article. Oh, what year is this? 2023, talking about water curing. (2019) talking about water curing. (2024). I'm under the impression that this is within like a couple years, and it looks like legalization may have been where it started, at least in the States. Whew. So how long have we been going? I'm not having a hard time being able to check that, huh? Well, goddamn, I guess I don't get to know. When preparing... Only about 20 minutes. When preparing to cure cannabis in water, ensure that your buds are perfectly trimmed. The flowers should be uniform and well manicured. It is going to be harder to improve the appearance after curing. Put the trimmed buds in a clean mason jar and add distilled water. Do not pack the jars to the brim. A good rule of thumb is to fill your jars with 2/3 full of flour. The buds must be fully submerged in water at all times. It is very important that your buds do not float. Placing the jars upside down might solve the problem. But if the lids are screwed on tightly, but only if the lids are screwed on tightly. If you struggle to keep your weed submerged in water, tinfoil might help. Try pushing the buds down to the bottom of the jar and placing a piece of tinfoil above them. It should prevent your buds from floating to the top. The water from the jars needs to be replaced daily with fresh distilled water until the water is clean. Make sure the buds are once again fully submerged when you place them in the water. Remember, the dirtier the weed, the longer it will take to complete this process. Honestly, I think washing buds and then air curing them is taking the dub for me. Once the curing process is done, I'm covering up half the article. Here we go. I'm going to slap me right over here, actually. How to dry weed after water curing. Once the curing process is done, it's time to dry your cured cannabis. You can let the buds air dry by placing them on a paper towel or on a drying rack. Remember to turn them regularly to ensure all sides get dry and avoid mold growth. That's also something you need to do when air drying and air curing your cannabis, is turning it. Make sure nothing gets stagnant or staying still too long or anything like that, because you really want to avoid mold if at all possible. Alternatively, you can use a food dehumidifier for faster results. Before water curing your weed buds, to make sure they are not moldy. Curing cannabis in water does not remove mold. In fact, the higher moisture creates an environment that mold can thrive in. So always check your harvested buds before you start using them. Always, every time. Remain vigilant for every single possible threat in your garden, and take extreme precautions to keep shit out of your garden, because once it gets in there, it's so hard to get out. Anything, whether it be mold or bugs or stress, any of it, it will cause problems for a long time. Is water curing cannabis the same as bud washing or the ice water hash extraction process? It does not sound like it. Water curing cannabis is not the same as bud washing or water extraction. The goal of bud washing is to remove any dirt, dust, mites, eggs, soil, or pesticide residue from freshly harvested cannabis. Think of washing vegetables and fruit with water before eating them. Bud washing involves briefly submerging harvested buds in room temperature water mixed with other ingredients such as baking soda or lemon juice, which I use both. A combination of baking soda and lemon juice. I fill a 5-gallon bucket with approximately 4 gallons of water, and then I put in 1 cup of baking soda and 1 cup of lemon juice. A trick I learned from Pigeons 420 before I even started growing, and then I didn't even do it until actually I've been doing it the whole time. I did do it on my first grow. Remember that bud washing does not remove mold, and will also increase overall drying time, which I haven't seen an increase, that's for sure. It's been staying in that 17 to 14 day window. Still, it has been reported to some to improve the bud's taste and overall quality, which I feel like it does. The ice water hash extraction process is that in which a cannabis is submerged in ice cold water to produce high quality bubble hash. The process hardens and breaks off the trichomes from the rest of the cannabis plant. In addition, the cold process is gentle on terpenes and flavonoids, making it possible to produce hash full of flavor. This is something that I need to try. The purpose of water curing is different. This technique is used to make sure the buds are of better quality than when consumed straight after being cut from the plant. So basically, make sure you're not smoking actual fucking dirt. The final product is perfect for discreet use and is excellent for making edibles and topicals, as the process removes a lot of the taste and smell. And if it really does remove as much as it's trying to claim or make it seem it is, I will definitely be using my water cured bud as edible makers, and that's just going to be how it is. Water curing is not for everybody, but if you want to cut down your curing time or would like your weed to have less flavor but smoke a bit smoother, which I doubt, this could be the process for you. Very fantastic. I wonder if we can find water cured bud just to get a good look at what we would be expecting here. Jesus. Ah, shit. There was a side-by-side. Where the fuck? Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. So, they don't look that different. Like the stem, this one is a lot more brown, and this one is a more vibrant green. And this one's got a little bit more brownish looking stuff in here somewhere, and this one does not have that. But overall, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it would. Because I've seen like water cured bud, I'm pretty sure, and it's just been like brown. Yeah, like this one right here. Look at this difference. This is nuts. And I'm going to assume a content creator made this. I don't know anything about this image, but I've seen it before. This is disgusting looking. But at the same time, doesn't look like the worst weed I've ever seen. But this is fantastic. But overall, I do have to say, like, here, my closing statements on this, if you will. I don't think I'll ever do it unironically or not for content. I literally think that the best way to use it would be to make edibles. But at the same time, you could just find a plant that makes good edibles and its flavonoids just go with it already. Like a coffee smelling strain or a chocolate smelling strain or a lemony thing for like lemon cake or something like that. Like just find a terpene profile that or expression that goes with what you plan on making with it. Keep everything organized. It can be a bit tedious, but if you want to elevate that type of edible game, that's kind of what I would recommend. Water curing I would do as a last resort if you need a quick bud, I guess. But other than that, I would just go with air curing. The patience is gonna pay off. That takes time. This takes time. Do they actually take a different amount of time? I will have to find out personally. But I think that's pretty much gonna be it. So you guys, thank you very much for joining. I appreciate the chatting and the interaction, all the likes, and all that stuff. Definitely can't wait to do a little bit more with this streaming software. It's been real. See you next time.